a woman, a northerner, the next generation. Well, listening to that is the re-elected Labour MP for Wigan, Nandy. Nandy, welcome. I must ask you straight away, are you going to stand for the leadership of the Labour Party?
Well, the honest answer is that I'm seriously thinking about it. The reason that I'm thinking about it is because we've just had the most shattering defeat where you really felt in towns like mine that the earth was quaking, and we've watched the entire Labour base just crumble beneath our feet. I think we need to think seriously now about, first of all, how you bring those lifelong Labour voters who felt that they not only couldn't vote Labour, but actually in many instances chose the Tories, how you bring Labour home to them. And I also think we have to think seriously about how we rebuild that coalition that has propelled us into power 3 times in the last 100 years, the Lewishams and the Lees, and how you speak for both. I think that I definitely have a contribution to make. I come from one part of that coalition. I've lived in and represented another part for the last decade. But I think we need to take a bit of time to think seriously about how we're going to take that very hard road back to power and who is best placed to fix it.
You heard John McDonnell there talking about the importance perhaps of having a next leader from the north. Is that something you agree with? I mean, you say you're going to straddle the coalition, but perhaps the north is a particular priority for Labour right now.
Well, there's certainly a very, very hard road back to regain the trust of those lifelong Labour voters in towns like mine. And even those who in the end came out on Thursday and put a cross in the ballot box for us did so with very little enthusiasm. So I think that it's right to say that we need to be much more rooted in those parts of the country. I think that goes beyond the leader, though. You know, if you look at the Labour Party structures at the moment, our headquarters is in central London. Our last 10 Labour Party conferences have been in the major cities. Our regional offices and our constituency parties have very little power. There's a real job of work to be done to try to rebuild in those places and empower people in those places to be able to speak properly, because the truth is that we just haven't heard what people have been telling us for some time, and there's a cycle that then develops. I mean, setting up this interview, to be honest, was an absolute nightmare, because I was told that unless I came to a London studio to talk about rebuilding our northern heartlands on a Sunday, I couldn't come on the show. And I'm very grateful to you for changing that and to allowing me to do it from up north. But the trouble is that unless we start to urgently address these structural problems, we're never going to be able to hear and show proper respect to those communities that rejected us so decisively on Thursday.
When you were re-elected in Wigan, you made a very powerful speech, and it finished saying, "I have listened, I have heard you, and I will make it my mission from this day forward to bring Labour home to you." Are you saying that the Labour Party, its structure, needs to be wholesale reformed? There needs to be a really big change in the way the Labour Party is put together and run?
Absolutely. There is absolutely no reason why decision-making is concentrated in central London. Our Labour headquarters, in my view, should move out of London. Our regional offices should be empowered to take real decisions. We should move our party conferences back to towns as well as cities, because the party conferences, as you probably remember, Andrew, is one of the few times when the whole sort of political apparatus moved out of central London.
True.
And having it up north has been a real eye-opener for a lot of the people who actually set the tone, make the decisions and wield power. And those communities can see it. They've seen it for a very long time. As one woman said to me on Thursday, "I haven't left the Labour Party has left me." And that's why I say that it has to be my mission, our mission, to bring Labour back home to people like her.
Let me ask you about something that we've heard from the doorsteps all over Britain. I don't know if it's the same in Wigan or not, which was that Jeremy Corbyn himself was a big part of the problem and that voters were bringing his name up again and again. How much do you think it was this leadership that has caused this defeat?
So that is undoubtedly true, and it wasn't just the case in Scotland, as you referenced when you were talking to John, but in every single part of the country, and not just in Leave areas, but in Remain areas as well. I've heard it from campaigners and colleagues and activists all over the country. But it would be far too simplistic to say that this is just simply about one man or about one issue. And actually, one of the things that I do very much agree with Jeremy about is that this wasn't a rejection of all of the things that we were saying in this election. I felt very strongly that there are a lot of Labour people who liked some of the policies that we were putting forward. But as one WASPI woman said to me, a woman who'd been particularly badly affected by the state change to the state pension age and who stood to benefit enormously from the Labour manifesto, she said, I'm worried that you don't have the money to do this, that you're going to borrow. And
so in order credibility, really?
Well, I don't think it is credibility, actually. I think it's about trust. I think a lot of people were very, very attracted by the offer that Jeremy had put forward. He'd made a decisive break in 2015 from an era when we were too afraid to stand up for our values. But the trouble is that she was frightened of the prospect of what that Labour government would do. And it's in our constitution that Labour seeks the trust of the people to govern, and we've got to rediscover how we can earn people's trust in order to make that radical change that the country needs.
Are you going to vote for the withdrawal bill when it comes back to Parliament?
Well, I don't know what Boris Johnson is planning at the moment.
He's planning to bring it back to Parliament, that's pretty clear.
So my understanding is that he will bring it back. I don't know whether he'll bring it back this week, this coming week. I suspect that probably we'll have second reading at that point.
You voted for it before. Are you going to vote for it again?
So I will vote for it on the basis that he and his team are willing to consider options like a customs union at committee stage. That was the basis on which I voted for it last time, and that I've reached out to members of his team. I would be surprised, if I'm honest, given the narrative around Brexit in this general election. I think we're looking at the hardest of hard Brexits, and I will not vote for that.
Final question. Do you trust the current leadership, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, and the current NEC to oversee a completely fair leadership campaign next time? Are you suspicious there's some kind of fix going on, or are you completely trusting of them?
I do trust them, actually, to run a fair process. I mean, you know, you listen to the interview with John, it's very clear that he's got a favoured candidate. Perhaps Jeremy has as well, I don't know. But actually, it's not up to them, it's up to the National Executive Committee. And that is about to meet and decide how long the timetable should be and make all those nuts and bolts decisions. And I think then what needs to happen is that good candidates need to come forward and have a real discussion about the ideas that are going to bring us back to power.
You sound to me like you're standing.
Well, as I said, in all honesty, I am seriously thinking about it. I've never said that before because, in all honesty, I never have meant that before. But the truth is that this situation is now incredibly stark. You said to John earlier in the interview that potentially we were looking at the annihilation of the Labour Party, and I've got constituents who woke up on Friday morning with no sense of hope at all about what the future is going to bring. We urgently have to change that, and I think all of us have a duty to come forward and play a part in it.